Hey everyone, it's Thursday, so that means it's time for another Tune-Up Thursday. And these are videos that we put together to help you to take care of your marriage. Now, I'm in my office today because it's too cold. I didn't want to go anywhere. And I didn't want to go outside and shoot this video or walk to another place. So I'm lazy and I'm kind of a weenie, so I apologize about that. But here we are. So today I want to talk about real quickly about differences in our marriage. Now, I don't know if you know this, you figured this out yet or not, but you married someone who is different than you. They come from a different home, different family, different upbringing. They have different likes and dislikes and interests. Sure, there are some things that you share together. You have a lot of similarities for sure, but you also are very different. And a lot of those differences come in just our personality and our makeup, who we are, how we were wired by God. And so a lot of times what happens in marriages is we get frustrated because our spouse is different than us, and what we try to do is we try to change them. We want them to be more like us. But here's the danger in that. When you're trying to change your spouse, remember God looked at his creation. He looked at us and said, it is good. And so when you're trying to change your spouse, you're kind of going, you know, God, you could have done things a little bit different. Can I give you can I offer some tweaks or maybe a few changes that you could make in my spouse? Now, I'm sort of joking there, but in reality, you know, we're different. And so instead of letting those differences create conflict in your marriage, I think one of the things you could do is to embrace those differences and just say, okay, and learn about those differences. Like, why do we see this thing differently? What is it about your upbringing? What is it about your background? What is it about how your brain works that you see this differently or you prioritize this different? And I don't, it doesn't, this bothers you, but it doesn't bother me. And so let's talk about that. Let's learn about that, because a big part of relationship is seeking to understand one another. You don't want to invalidate one another, but you want to understand and say, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. Sure, I still see it differently, but I understand now why you react the way that you did or why you think this way. And so really get to understand what's behind that. I think another thing too is with these differences is some of these you just have to overlook. Everything can't be a battle. Or you can't win everything. And remember, the saying is, if you win an argument, then the truth is in marriage no one really wins. You both end up losing. But some differences you're just going to have to overlook them, because they just, in the grand scheme of things, they don't mean that much. They're not that big of a they're not that big of a deal. And so I don't want to make these a big deal. You you know, you do toilet paper with the roll goes down this way. Well, yeah, I like it when it comes. Well, okay, well, you know what? In marriage, that's not a big deal. You know, we just live with it. You know, when you go to the restroom, turn the paper over, and then when you're in there, you turn it. It's whatever. Okay. So some of those you're just going to have to disagree and just move on, because it's not that big of a deal. And the other thing you need to do, embracing those differences, is look for the good in the differences. My wife is very organized. She is a planner, and she is strong in those areas, and I'm not as strong in those areas. And so in our marriage, she helps us a lot in that area, because that's where she thrives. Now there's some other areas where I thrive. I'm a little stronger in certain areas, and so I help us in those areas. And so we could look at those and go, well, why isn't she more like me, or why isn't he more, or you know, or why isn't he more like me, or whatever. But instead we're just go, hey, you know what? This works, because you know, you lead here, I lead here, but we're still going together, and it's helping our marriages. And here's the other thing: when there's differences and you're struggling with these differences, and maybe you're at an impasse, and you've heard me say this before, you might need to widen the circle, and you might need to ask some people who you trust, some people who you love, and people who love your marriage, and say, hey, help us with this, because we have some differences on this, and so we're kind of stuck. We just need some outside opinions, and we just need you to look at this from a different perspective and help us. So I guess long story short here is, don't let those differences frustrate you and create conflict and resentment in your marriage, but embrace those and learn from one another and understand each other. And I think that will help you to celebrate those differences instead of letting those differences just kind of bring you down. All right? Do me a favor, like this video, share this video, and as always, please, please, please take care of your marriage.